The morning felt heavy, the kind of morning where even the air seems to whisper that something big is about to happen. The courthouse parking lot was full, and the sidewalk outside the entrance buzzed with reporters, lawyers, and curious strangers. Everyone had gathered for the same reason: the divorce hearing of billionaire businessman Adrian Cole and his quiet, graceful wife Maya. People had been talking about this case for weeks. Adrian controlled several companies, owned hotels, and was known for showing off his wealth. But today, he looked even more confident than usual. The reason for his confidence walked right beside him. Adrian stepped out of his black luxury car with his young mistress holding his arm tightly. She wore a bright red dress, high heels that clicked against the marble floor, and a smile that seemed almost rehearsed. Adrian gave the cameras a proud smirk, as if he had already won something. He looked like a man who believed nothing could ever shake him. Inside the courthouse, the crowd made space for him. Some people whispered openly. Others just stared, unsure how someone could be smiling so much on the day of his divorce. But Adrian didn't seem to care. He walked forward with his head high, the mistress close to him, both of them acting like the courtroom was their stage. On the opposite side of the hallway, Maya sat quietly on a wooden bench. Her hands were folded in her lap, and she held a simple tissue between her fingers. She didn't look weak. She didn't even look angry. She looked steady, like someone who had cried all her tears long before this day. She took a slow breath as she saw Adrian walk in. Their eyes met for a quick second. Adrian's smirk grew wider. Maya simply blinked and looked away. The difference between them couldn't be more clear. Adrian walked like a man who believed life was a game he always won. Maya sat like someone who had learned the hard way. That silence is sometimes the strongest answer. The hallway grew even quieter when a door opened at the far end. Judge Eleanor Hayes stepped out, holding a thick brown envelope in her hand. It was sealed tightly, with a red stamp across the front that read confidential. She walked firmly, with the seriousness of someone carrying truth that could change everything. Some people in the hallway noticed the envelope and whispered, "Is that the file? Is that the report?" No one was sure, but everyone felt the tension rise. Judge Hayes didn't look at the reporters or the crowd. She looked straight at Maya first. There was a slight softness in her eyes, almost a gentle sadness. Then she turned her head toward Adrian. Her expression changed instantly, firm, controlled, almost cold. Adrian's smile wavered for the very first time. The judge spoke clearly, her voice echoing around the hallway. "Mr. Cole, Mrs. Cole, please follow me inside. Today's hearing involves evidence that will affect both parties." Adrian straightened his shoulders, pretending to be unfazed. He let out a small laugh as he guided his mistress ahead of him. "Evidence," he said loudly, loud enough for people to hear. "Let her show whatever she wants. I'm not worried." The mistress laughed lightly, playing with a diamond bracelet on her wrist. It shimmered under the fluorescent lights, but even that shine felt empty. Maya stood slowly, her movements calm and steady. She didn't respond to Adrian. She didn't look at the mistress. She simply walked behind them, almost floating, as if she had no desire to fight or shout. It was the quiet type of strength that makes people stop and rethink everything they assumed about someone as they moved toward the courtroom. Judge Hayes paused at the door. She turned to Adrian and said in a low, serious voice, "Mr. Cole, I advise you to sit down the moment you enter. What I have in this envelope may change the course of this case." Adrian raised an eyebrow, confused. "What's in there?" he asked, still forcing a smile. Judge Hayes held the envelope slightly higher. "Truth," she said, "and it cannot be ignored." The hallway fell silent again. A thick silence. A silence that made everyone suddenly aware that something important, something life-changing was about to unfold. The cameras stopped clicking. The whispers stopped. Even Adrian stopped smiling completely. Because whatever was inside that brown envelope was about to wipe the smile off his face. Asterisk, before the courtroom tension, before the cameras, before the brown envelope with the truth inside, there was a different story. A story that began quietly, almost sweetly. long before Adrian Cole became a billionaire or a headline. Many years earlier, Adrian and Maya were simply two young people trying to build a life together. They lived in a small apartment with thin walls and old furniture, but they laughed often and dreamed big. Maya worked evenings at a bookstore while Adrian filled notebooks with ideas for his business. They didn't have much money, yet they felt rich in other ways. Their world was small, but it was warm. In those early days, Adrian used to say, "One day, we'll have everything we need." And Maya would smile and reply, "As long as we have each other, that's already enough." They got married quietly, surrounded by a few friends. There was no luxury, no fancy suits, no expensive rings, only simple love. For a long time, Maya believed that love would carry them through anything. Then Adrian's life changed. His small startup suddenly gained attention. Investors came in. Money followed. Success arrived almost overnight. With every new contract, every new business deal, Adrian grew more confident and more distant. Where he once spent evenings talking with Maya about their day, he now spent nights on calls, traveling, attending events, building his empire. Maya supported him at first. She understood success had demands. She cooked alone, slept alone, celebrated holidays alone, always telling herself this was temporary. But slowly, Adrian's personality shifted. He became sharper with his words, shorter in conversations, uninterested in the little things that once made them happy. He wore expensive suits, drove expensive cars, and met powerful people who praised him as if he could do no wrong. Maya watched the changes quietly. She didn't nag or question him harshly. She believed that love needed patience, and she had plenty of that. She tried to keep their home warm and peaceful, hoping Adrian would remember where he came from. But success can sometimes make people forget. It started with missed dinners, then missed anniversaries, then last-minute cancellations of plans they had made weeks earlier. Maya adjusted her expectations again and again. But every time she lowered her expectations, her heart lowered with them. One night, Maya prepared Adrian's favorite dinner. She waited at the table until the food grew cold. When Adrian finally returned past midnight, she asked gently, "Did something keep you late?" He shrugged. "Work." His tone was colder than the food on the table. From that night on, the distance between them wasn't just emotional, it was physical. Adrian stayed out more. He cared about how he looked, how he was seen, and who noticed him. He became more private, locking his phone, changing passwords, and stepping outside to take calls. Maya felt the shift like a quiet earthquake underneath her feet. Still, she held on. One weekend, she suggested they take a short trip to reconnect. Just a simple getaway. Somewhere far from the noise. Adrian didn't even look up from his phone when he answered, "I don't have time for that." That sentence stayed with her for months. Whenever Maya tried to talk, Adrian responded with irritation or silence. She told herself that marriages had hard phases. That patience was needed, but somewhere in her heart, she could feel the truth. She was losing him. The first real sign came when she noticed unusual expenses appearing on their shared financial statements. High-end restaurants she had never visited. Jewelry purchases she had never received. Hotel transactions he could not explain. When she gently questioned him, he brushed it off. "Business meetings," he said. "Gifts for clients. Stop worrying so much." But Maya wasn't blind. She wasn't dramatic. She wasn't even angry. She was simply hurt. The emotional distance grew deeper, and Adrian became more careless about hiding it. He started returning home with perfume on his clothes that wasn't hers. He received late-night calls and stepped out of the room every time. The home they had once built together no longer felt like a home. It felt like a waiting room, a place where Maya waited for truth, or closure, or anything that would explain why the man she married had disappeared inside the man he had become. One evening, as she sat alone in the living room, Maya whispered to herself, "I still believe people can change." But maybe he changed too far. It was the moment she realized the man she loved was slipping away, and she had no idea how much more truth she was about to discover. because the next chapter of her life wouldn't be about patience. It would be about evidence, about betrayal hidden behind money and luxury, and about a DNA test that no one saw coming. The truth rarely appears loudly. Sometimes it comes quietly, in small signs that people ignore until they can't anymore. For Maya, the truth arrived slowly, first in hints, then in doubts, and finally in a way she could no longer look away from. One Saturday morning, while Adrian was out on a business call, Maya cleaned the living room. She lifted a stack of papers from the coffee table, simple receipts and bills, until something unusual slid out from between the pages. It was a detailed statement from one of Adrian's private bank accounts, a statement she had never seen before. The numbers shocked her. There were transfers to a woman's name she didn't recognize, large amounts, not just once, but several times. Designer stores, fine dining restaurants, hotel bookings, all connected to the same mysterious person. Maya felt her heartbeat slow and grow heavy. She didn't jump to conclusions. She didn't scream or cry. She simply sat down on the couch and stared at the paper, as if it might explain itself. That was the moment she understood. Something was deeply wrong. Still, Maya didn't make accusations. She waited for Adrian to return home. When he walked through the door hours later, she held up the statement with gentle hands and asked softly, "Do you want to explain this?" Adrian barely glanced at it. "Business hospitality," he answered, dismissive. "You wouldn't understand." Maya nodded slowly, but inside, she felt something break, not loudly, but silently. The way glass cracks before it shatters. Over the next weeks, she watched more carefully. Adrian's behavior made more sense now. The late nights, the lies, the sudden desire to impress, the secrecy. She noticed he spent more time dressing up, choosing colognes he never used before, checking his hair twice before leaving. Then came the night that shifted everything. Adrian came home unusually upset, pacing around the bedroom. Maya asked if everything was all right. He snapped at her without thinking, and said something that confused her. "You don't understand the pressure. You don't know what it's like to be responsible for a child." Maya froze. "A child," she repeated, her voice soft. Adrian instantly realized what he said. His face tightened, his eyes dropped, and for a moment, he stood completely still. Then he said quickly, "I meant the company. Stop overthinking." But the damage was done. The word child echoed in Maya's mind over and over again. She didn't ask more questions. She didn't accuse him. She simply watched him walk away. And she understood that the truth was much bigger than receipts or late nights. A few days later, she found the final confirmation. While sorting through more paperwork for their joint property, she unexpectedly found an official-looking envelope. Inside was a handwritten message from the mistress. It mentioned financial support, and a child Adrian was claimed to be the father of. Maya felt her heart drop. Not because of anger, but because of how deep the lies had gone. She had been living inside a truth that only she believed. Adrian had moved into a different world, a world where she no longer existed. After that day, Maya made a quiet decision. She would stop asking questions and start protecting herself. She met a lawyer recommended by a friend. The lawyer listened carefully to everything Maya said, went through the documents, and leaned back in her chair with a thoughtful look. "Maya," she said gently, "if this woman is claiming Adrian is the father, then, before any divorce settlement is finalized, you need a DNA test. It's the only way to ensure the truth comes out in court." Maya felt nervous. "Will the court allow that?" "Yes," the lawyer replied, "especially if financial support is involved." The following week, Maya filed for a court-ordered DNA test. Adrian was furious when he received the notice. He accused Maya of trying to embarrass him. He refused the test at first, claiming he didn't need to prove anything, but the court insisted. Adrian eventually submitted the sample, complaining the whole time. He believed the test was unnecessary, even insulting. In his mind, he was untouchable, too powerful to be questioned. The mistress reassured him constantly, "Don't worry. Everything is fine." But Maya noticed something different. The mistress wasn't as confident as Adrian. She avoided eye contact. She kept checking her phone. She looked afraid. The results arrived one afternoon, sealed inside the same brown envelope the judge now held in court. Maya's lawyer opened it privately first. Her face changed, not with shock, but with quiet recognition. "Maya," she said, "you need to stay strong. The truth is on your side." When the court date arrived, Adrian walked in proudly with his mistress. Confident the entire building revolved around him. But Maya didn't need confidence. She had the truth, and the judge had the DNA file. The courtroom felt colder than the hallway. Even though sunlight entered softly through tall windows, people settled into their seats, whispering among themselves, unsure what was about to unfold. Maya sat at her table quietly, her hands folded together, her face calm. Adrian sat at the opposite table with his mistress beside him, still pretending nothing could touch him. The judge entered the room, holding the sealed brown envelope. The sound of her footsteps made everyone sit straighter. Adrian leaned back in his chair with a relaxed smile. The mistress sat close to him, placing her hand lightly on his arm. They acted like they were attending a casual meeting, not a legal hearing. Judge Eleanor Hayes placed the envelope on her desk gently, almost respectfully. Then she looked up, her eyes sharper than before. "We are here today to address new evidence that affects the financial claims attached to Mr. Cole's case," she began. Adrian nodded proudly, almost eager. "Yes, Your Honor. I'm sure we can clear everything quickly." The judge didn't smile. "Mr. Cole, I suggest you listen instead of assume." Her tone made the entire courtroom fall silent. Maya watched quietly. She didn't feel excitement, revenge, or joy. She only felt a strange sense of relief. The slow, calm breath of someone who knows the truth is finally stepping into the light. Judge Hayes lifted the envelope and continued. "This is the official DNA report. The test was ordered to verify the claim that Mr. Cole fathered a child outside his marriage. These results have direct legal impact." Adrian's smile widened. He turned to the mistress with a look of pride, almost as if he expected applause. But the mistress's face told a different story. She stared at the desk, avoiding everyone's gaze. Her fingers twisted together nervously. The red lipstick she wore earlier didn't look so bold now. It almost looked out of place. The judge carefully opened the envelope. Every rustle of the paper seemed louder, sharper. She pulled out the documents and read them. Silently for a few moments, then she raised her head. Her expression said everything before her words even came. "Mr. Cole," she said, "these results confirm that the child in question is not biologically related to you." The courtroom exploded in whispers. Adrian sat frozen, his smile collapsing instantly. The mistress's face turned pale. She leaned back in her chair, her eyes wide, her breath short. She tried to speak, but no sound came out. Adrian blinked rapidly, as if trying to understand. What do you mean?" he stammered. Judge Hayes repeated calmly. "The DNA report shows a 0% probability of paternity. You are not the father." The words hit the room like a quiet thunder, not loud but impossible to escape. Adrian leaned forward, staring at the judge, then at the papers, then at the mistress. His voice cracked slightly. "This must be a mistake." The judge shook her head. "There is no mistake. This test was done at a certified laboratory. Chain of custody was followed. Everything is valid." The mistress finally whispered Adrian. "Listen." "No," Adrian snapped, but his voice lacked strength. "No, you told me." His words faded. The control he once had slipped from his hands like sand. Maya sat still, watching the scene unfold. Her expression didn't change. She didn't smile. She didn't move. But inside, she felt something heavy lift off her shoulders. The weight of months of lies, doubts, and accusations disappearing in just a few sentences. Judge Hayes continued firmly. "Mr. Cole, you spent months making financial decisions based on false assumptions. Mrs. Cole filed for this test to protect herself from unfair legal consequences, and she was correct to do so." Adrian opened his mouth, but no words came out. There was no arrogance now. No smirk, no confidence, just silence. The mistress trembled. "I didn't mean for things to go this far," she whispered. You thought I would never find out," Adrian said, but his voice wasn't loud. It was small, shocked, almost broken. The judge tapped her gavel lightly. "We will stay focused on the legal matter. Personal discussions are not part of this hearing." Then she turned to Maya. "Mrs. Cole, you acted responsibly and respectfully. The court recognizes that you were misled and emotionally impacted by your husband's actions." Maya nodded gently, her eyes soft but steady. Judge Hayes concluded. "Given the results, Mrs. Cole is cleared of all accusations, and any claims made by the other party are now dismissed." The courtroom whispered again. Even the air felt different, lighter on one side, heavier on the other. Adrian looked at Maya for the first time that day. His eyes weren't proud anymore. They searched her face, almost pleading, almost apologizing. "Maya," he whispered, "I didn't know." Maya looked at him with quiet strength and replied softly, "But you chose not to care." Her voice wasn't angry. It wasn't harsh. It was simply the truth. A truth finally spoken out loud. The courtroom slowly emptied after the judge's ruling. But the echo of her words still hung in the air. Reporters whispered outside the doors, ready to turn the day into headlines. Lawyers packed their files. People who had come to watch the drama shook their heads quietly as they left. But inside, 3 people remained, seated, Maya, calm and composed. Adrian, stunned and silent, and the mistress, sitting several inches away. From him now, her confidence gone, her eyes red with embarrassment and regret. Maya stood up first. She didn't rush. She didn't look back at either of them. Her heart felt steady, the kind of steady that only truth can bring. Her lawyer placed a gentle hand on her arm and said, "You handled everything with grace." Maya smiled softly. "I didn't want revenge. I just wanted the truth." They stepped outside the courtroom, and the soft breeze from the hallway washed over Maya like a quiet blessing. After months of sleepless nights and heavy questions, she finally felt her shoulders relax. Inside the courtroom, Adrian still hadn't moved. His world, the world he believed he had full control over, had cracked in front of strangers. He wasn't used to feeling powerless. He wasn't used to being wrong. He wasn't used to people seeing him without the shield of his money. The mistress finally whispered, "Adrian, I'm sorry." He looked at her with an expression she had never seen on him, disappointment mixed with disbelief. "You lied to me," he said quietly. "You let me believe something that wasn't true." She wiped her eyes. "I didn't plan this. I thought the child was," but Adrian raised his hand slightly. "Please, don't say anything more." He stood up slowly, feeling the weight of the truth pressing down on him. The arrogance he carried into the building was nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, outside the courthouse, Maya took a deep breath as if tasting freedom for the first time in years. A few reporters tried to approach her, but her lawyer guided her gently through the crowd. Maya didn't want attention. She didn't want the spotlight. She simply wanted peace. When Adrian finally walked out, people turned and whispered. His face looked different, not angry, not proud, just tired. Tired of pretending, tired of holding up an image. Tired of lies that had built a wall between him and the life he once shared with Maya. He spotted her near the courtyard, standing under a tree as she waited for her ride. For a moment, he just stared at her, this woman who had once stood beside him through everything, who had supported him before he had anything to offer, who had believed in him long before the world even knew his name. He walked toward her slowly. "Maya," he said. She turned gently. "Yes." Adrian swallowed, his voice soft. "I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," Maya replied. Her tone wasn't cold. It was simply honest, the way someone speaks when they have accepted reality. "I never meant to hurt you," he whispered. She looked at him steadily. "I know, but you still did." He looked down, ashamed. Maya continued, her voice warm but firm. "You forgot who you were. And you forgot who we were. I held on as long as I could, but some things you cannot fix with words." Adrian nodded slowly. "Is this really the end?" Maya looked around the courthouse, the people passing by, the sunlight breaking through the clouds, and then met his eyes again. "It doesn't have to be an end in a painful way," she said. "It can simply be the end of what hurt us, and the beginning of something better for both of us." Her words surprised him. She wasn't angry, she wasn't bitter, she was simply free. A car pulled up in front of them. Maya gave a small, polite smile. "I hope you find yourself again, Adrian," she said gently. "I truly do." Then she stepped into the car and closed the door. Adrian stood there as the car drove away, watching the woman he once thought would always be waiting for him. For the first time, he understood something important. Maya hadn't won, and he hadn't lost. There were no winners today. Just lessons learned too late. The mistress walked out behind him but hesitated, unsure if she should approach. Adrian didn't look back. He simply began walking in the opposite direction, deep in thought. In her car, Maya leaned her head against the window. She wasn't sad, she wasn't relieved, she was simply ready. Ready for a new chapter. Ready to rediscover the dreams she had once paused. Ready to rebuild a life not based on someone else's choices, but on her own strength. The courthouse faded behind her, and with it faded the weight she had carried for far too long. And so the story ended, not with anger, not with revenge, but with truth. The quiet kind of truth that sets a person free.